Well, welcome everyone. We are so glad that you're able to join us today for our webinar. My name is Meredith Call and I serve as the Director for Parent and Family Services. And I also want to apologize for the status of my scratchy voice. And you may also hear me try to cough every now and then, so I apologize in advance for that. But today we are really grateful to be joined by Dr. Angela Stowe, our Director for Student Counseling Services as well as Health Promotions here on campus. And she is going to share with you about the services that they offer within her area, but also about kind of the status of the UAB student and where we're seeing our students coming to them for services, and then how you as a family member can help support your student through this process. Before we get into letting Angela kind of share with you a little bit about her services, I do want to take you through utilizing the webinars, the Zoom webinar platform if you're joining us via Zoom. There's a couple of things to note for this. So first and foremost, if you are logging in, you should always see, as the webinar is going, something that looks like this green box sitting towards the top of your screen, because that lets you know that you're fully and actively a part of it. And especially once the webinar starts going, you may lose some of the box and information as far as how to click or share questions with us. But there is a couple of things. One, if you are having any problems with the volume, this is down here in the lower left-hand corner. That audio settings will allow you to adjust your volume a little bit to potentially hear us a little bit better. Or if you're still continuing to have problems, there in the original email after you registered should have also provided you with information regarding the a call-in number that would allow you to then call in and hear the sound side while getting the visual from your computer. Other things to know is down here on the bottom is something that's a raise or lower hand. When you click on the raise hand function or the lower hand, that just lets us know that you have a question. I will be very honest, that doesn't do much other than just say that I've got something over here. The bigger function to really utilize is this function right here, that Q&A factor. When you click on that, you'll just get a screen that pops up like this. It will then allow you to type in your question, and then once you do that, we will be able to see it on all sides. Everyone will be able to see your particular question. So as the fact that everyone can see your question, please make sure that you don't put any identifying information in there related to your specific student. Please feel free to ask generalized questions or things along those lines that we're happy to answer, but we just don't want to put anything out there that is an identifiable factor for any students of ours here at UAB. But so also the nice feature is that you may type in a question that another individual on the webinar has a lot of interest in as well. And so instead of saving them from having to type that question in themselves, they can click on this thumbs up button that is right here. So if there are a lot of questions coming in and you see a question that you really like and would really like to have answered, please click on that thumbs up button, because what that does from our side is it actually pushes it up. See how it's got that one click there? It will let us know that there are 1 or 17 people that are really interested in that particular question. And so that means that we really need to make sure we address that question sooner rather than later. So those are some of just the key things to know there. And again, it's the Q&A button that looks like a little folder down there, and you just type in whatever question you have, and then we will be able to address that as we're going through. If you're joining us from the Facebook Live side of things, then if you'll just type in your question over there, then I should be able to see it and monitor it from this side as well. But with all of that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Stowe. She is going to be able to walk you through all of the different services and everything that they have to offer. So with that being said, I'm going to give it over to Dr. Stowe.
All right. Meredith, thank you very much for this opportunity to share information with parents and families who we know. All right, we're getting the screens set up so that I can show the PowerPoint and you can hear my voice. There we go. Thank y'all for your patience, and we are set to go. So today what we're going to do is talk about a couple of different things. I want to give a little information about what we know about student mental health in college and a picture of what's going on at UAB and what we've learned about UAB students, and a little bit about why, which is one of the biggest questions I get, is why are we seeing the things that we're seeing in college students these days? And then I really want to leave today with some takeaways and some ways that you can support your students' mental health. Recently, the EAB, which is an organization that we get a lot of information from, published a 104-page report about the escalating demand for mental health services in higher education. And I'm going to share a little bit of information from this report along with some resources from different places that I have found to support the information that we've learned. So 3 of the reasons that the EAB found when they did their research to explain why we are seeing escalating demand, and you can see this on the screen with the blue arrows, is one, that we have increased awareness about mental health. This is something that's in our public discourse now in a way that it wasn't 10, 15, and especially 20 years ago, that people are naming mental health as a concern and talking about it in a much bigger, broader, and deeper way than they have in the past. Connected to that, and also really important, is that our higher education institutions have developed structured response frameworks so that there are organized and systematic things in place that can respond to identified student mental health needs. Student counseling services, for example. We have what we call a care team that responds to students of concern. Our student outreach office that works to eliminate barriers and connect students with the resources they need to be successful. These are all structured response frameworks so that we can help make sure the students' mental health is supported so they can be successful. And then the other trend that we've seen over the years is a reduction in stigma to seeking care. And a number of reasons have contributed to this. There have been a growing number of national and local campaigns that have made stigma to seeking mental health help reduce. And we've also increased access so folks can be more comfortable. One of the interesting trends that we've seen is while the enrollment has increased for higher education about 5.6% in the past 10-ish years, our utilization of counseling services nationally has increased about 30%. So we're definitely outpacing the growth of enrollment, the rate at which students are seeking counseling services. The EAB also found in a study that of incoming first-year students in 2016, 14% say that there's a really good chance that they're going to seek personal counseling at some point while in college, which is an all-time high for sure. UAB participates in the National College Health Assessment every year, and we're going to be starting to participate in it every other year because the data that we receive doesn't really change on an annual basis. But I'm sharing some data here from UAB students that we gathered in the spring of 2016 and 2017. The green numbers represent 2016 and the blue bars represent 2017. And what this graph shows is factors that have impacted student academic progress. And these are measurable impacts. So what I mean by that is that there's been a disruption in study. They had to drop a class. They withdrew in some way, shape, or form, either from a class or from the semester. They have an interruption in their research. They have a lower grade in a course, some kind of measurable impact. And if we look at the top 10 factors for each of these years, there's a lot of overlap in the top 6. Stress and anxiety are always our top 2, followed by sleep, then work, and depression. Relationship difficulties, and then we come to the next one, which was new for 2017, which is concern for a troubled friend or family member. So concern for others had a measurable impact on academic progress for students in 2017. And then it's not until now that we see cold, flu, and sore throat and actual medical concern that has an interruption or disruption. Also new for 2017 were the next two, death of a friend or family member and participation in extracurricular activities. And so we certainly saw this at UAB and student counseling services in 2017, a rise in the number of students who experienced the death of a close loved one, a parent or a sibling, someone that lived in the home with them. And then participation in extracurricular activities. We know that our UAB students are highly engaged in activities that are going to promote the professional and career advancement. And so this is telling us that for some of our students, they are so involved that it actually is impacting their academic performance. It's something important for us to pay attention to. The last ones are internet, game, computer use, finances, and ADD, ADHD. These have always been one of the top contributing factors to impediments in academic success. Some additional data that we've gathered from the National College Health Assessment about mental health includes these factors as well. So in 2017, 50% of respondents indicated at some point in the last 12 months that they felt like things were hopeless. 56% reported feeling overwhelming anxiety. 36% of respondents indicated they felt too depressed to function, and 45% of respondents indicating feeling overwhelming anger at some point in the last 12 months. I'll take a minute to give you a little note about the students that respond to this. The NCHA is given to all UAB students, not necessarily just those who have sought counseling. So this is the general student population. It includes undergraduate students as well as graduate students across all levels of progression in their program of study, male and female, and in different majors. So it's a very broad cross-section of the UAB campus. It's also compared to the national data, which gathers almost 100,000 students' information each year. And for UAB, we're pretty comparable in most all the categories with the national numbers as well. So what we see is a lot of mental health concerns in college students in general, and UAB students are no different. So digging just a little bit deeper, I want to touch on the statistics that have to do with self-harm and what our students reported. In 2017, 6.9% of our students responding to the survey indicated that they had intentionally injured themselves at some point in the past 12 months. That includes cutting, burning, bruising, or otherwise. And that compares to a national sample that said that was 7% of the national sample said that they had self-harmed. Those that had seriously considered suicide in the past 12 months, 10.4% of UAB respondents indicated having seriously considered suicide, with 10.3% being the national comparison. This last statistic is about suicide attempts. In 2017, 3.3% of the respondents indicated that they had attempted suicide at some point in the past 12 months, compared with a 1.5% national sample. And this number draws attention to us. Why would our number be twice as much as the national average? So this is something that we're deeply looking into and trying to understand a little bit more about our students. So this represents, while a low percentage number, it represents a lot of our students. And each one of these are people that are really important to us. And so we want to understand a little more about what's going on with students and come up with good protocols and processes to make sure we can intervene early so students can get the help that they need to be successful. So I want to drill a little bit further down into the students that have actually come and sought counseling services. In 2017 and 18, we saw a total of almost 6,500 appointments, which represents a 114% increase of appointments in the past 5 years. We have also been very fortunate to be able to increase our staffing in the past 5 years and almost doubled the number of counselors that have been available to students on campus. So we are certainly mirroring national trends that there is a significant increase in utilization of services. A little bit about the presenting concerns that students are bringing when they come seek counseling support. So if we look at trends over the past 12-ish years, we can see back in 2007, the top presenting concern of students for counseling services was depression, followed by anxiety, and then relationships. In 2008, we saw a shift, and the trends began to change. And if we push forward to the present, which this graph goes to 2016, but we have seen this continue in 17 and 18, that the majority of students coming to seek counseling are coming because of anxiety, and that our top reason has actually flipped, followed by depression and then by relationships. So I want to show you a little bit about what we've seen here. For 2017 and 18, our presenting concerns mirrored the national trend, anxiety by far being our top, followed last year by depression and then relationships that were pretty similar. You can see from this graph that we also see students for eating concerns, trauma, grief, academic concerns, adjustment, other mental diagnosis, and students that may be seeking medical support as well. And then some things that may not fit into one of those major categories. We see a broad spectrum of presenting concerns. So that's a lot of heavy information about what we're seeing, about what students are bringing to college. But the biggest question that I get asked is why? Why are we seeing this? Why are we seeing this shift in mental health concerns? Why is there so much going on with our students right now? And as you might imagine, the answer is not simple, and there are several things that we are beginning to understand about what's contributing to this. The first is the good news. What we're doing is actually working, that people are learning it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to talk about mental health concerns. There's less stigma, and there's also increased access to help. Students are more aware that services are available, and they're feeling more permission to go seek out those services. So that's the good news. There's a lot of other information that we're learning as well as we observe the mental health of students. This particular study is one that's a longitudinal study that's been done for over 20, 30 years. And it looks at the amount of time that students are spending socializing with friends. For a long time, we didn't see much movement in the groups of students that were spending whether fewer than 5 hours, 6 to 15 hours, or 16 or more hours with friends until about 2005, and we began to see some things shift. Looking at the dark line, that's students that spend 16 or more hours per week. That's a little over 2 hours a day socializing with others, compared to the light line that's fewer than 5 hours a week socializing with others. There began to be a big shift in 2008 and a trend that students were spending more and more time alone and less time socializing with others. And that's contributed to a number of things that we're going to talk about in the upcoming slides that we have. This is something we've been hearing a lot more about in national research and information about what are the implications of high school and college students spending less time with others and more time alone. If you think about that shift in 2008, and an earlier slide also looked at the diagnoses of why students were coming to counseling, a shift in 2008 as well. What is critical about 2008? Well, we know a number of things were going on. There was a shift in the economy at that point in time that certainly impacts everyone. But one of the biggest impacts that comes up in our discussion is the smartphone. And now that we can have on our phone, and our students have on their phone, everything they need to be entertained. They can watch movies, they can play games, they can watch videos, they can text their friends, they can do their homework, and it's all in their pocket, right there in front of them, and they don't have to leave the house. And so this has been one of the things that seems to have contributed to spending less time with others and more time alone. This is another slide from the EAB study that I mentioned earlier. And one of the things that they discovered when they were digging through the studies that they reviewed is that a lot of what's going on with our students really isn't about what's happening at college. It's more about what's happening externally. So things such as substance use, drug and alcohol use, social media as an external stressor and distraction and contributing to some isolation. Intensified expectations, and we certainly know that our students at UAB are very driven. They're highly competitive. They're part of programs that have high stakes competition, and they want to be successful. And parenting styles, and then political climate. One thing we know is that the college environment does not exist outside the larger environment. And so it's important to think about our students in terms not just of being a student at UAB, but as part of several cultures. Students' programs of study may have different environments around support of mental health. The university, thinking about the context of living in Birmingham, and then certainly our national climate, that there's so many factors that may be contributing to what's going on with the student and what they're bringing each day with them to the classroom. We don't have the opportunity today to watch a couple of videos, but I didn't want to leave these out because the next two videos that I'm going to mention to you are really important in helping illustrate some of the student experience. Emery Bergman was a student at Cornell, and as a freshman, she put together this video that quickly went viral called My College Transition. And she ultimately started what's called the Unlonely Project. What she talked about in this video and put words to what many students are feeling is that there's a perception that I'm the only one that's lonely, that college is the best time of life and everyone is experiencing that except for me. Even when I try to connect, I don't feel as successful. She is a smart, involved, connected student and still talks about how she experienced her transition. So if you have some time to watch the video, the website is on the slide. Take a minute to check that out and see if you can see if your student identifies maybe with some things going on in the video and share it with them. Another big part of the conversation about mental health in our students is about social media. This is a 7-minute video by Bailey Parnell who goes through in a wonderful way a number of impacts that we know about social media on our students. And she gives some strategies as well about how to support our students in the use of social media that she, clearly states with us is not going to go away. It's where our students are going to be, and it's where they get a lot of their information. So things such as FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. Students stay connected because they don't want to miss out on opportunities, and many of them say they actually wouldn't be as interested in social media if it weren't for fear of missing out on opportunities. She also talks about the highlight reel and how we compare our lives to others' highlight reels, which is the big moments in their life, their best selves that are put out there. And we wonder, well, why does our life not look like everyone else's lives and how that can contribute to mental health? She talks about online bullying and online harassment as well. So some really important points that I think is worth 7 minutes of your time to check into and possibly share this video with your student as well. We know that social media has a big impact, and even considering the language of social media is so psychologically loaded. We look at how many friends we have, and we talk to students about, I have 500 friends, for example, but how many friendships? And thinking about the quality and level of connections that folks have. Does someone like or love what I've put on there? And that those terms can be very confusing sometimes to students as they learn how to navigate relationships in a different way now that they're in college. This slide has been really important as I've done this presentation, both to faculty, staff, as well as students. A lot of what we see in students is showing up as social anxiety, but we don't necessarily know that that's what's going on. So here's some quotes that can demonstrate what social anxiety might look like. I don't talk on the phone. I can't say no to a salesperson. I don't like to return things to the store. I get really nervous to raise my hand in class. I don't eat in public. I don't use my professor's office hours. I don't use public bathrooms. Many, many more comments. Another one that's not on this list that I've heard quite a bit is that I take up space. And they don't mean physical space. They mean psychological space or conversational space. And that they worry about being an intrusion. I think what's really important about these statements is, one, students when they see them or hear me say them out loud are always nodding their heads. They either identify with them themselves or they know someone that does. And that up to the outsider, some of these things might look like a student who's disengaged, or a student who doesn't care, or a student who has a bad attitude, for example. But when we look deeper, what actually is going on is social anxiety, such a fear of being found out, that they're not as smart or don't deserve to be there like everybody else. They're worried that they're going to mess up or they're going to disappoint someone. So it's important to look below the surface and a little bit deeper into someone's behavior, the possibility that social anxiety might be what's going on. All right, a couple more slides to dig a little bit deeper, and then we're going to talk about what to do about it. There are several subgroups of students and identities that we know have higher levels of risk for mental health concerns. Among those are our gender minority students, our LGBT students, as well as our transgender students. There are higher rates of depression, higher rates of suicidality. We also know that students that are cisgender, which would be more of our majority students, have higher levels of thriving than those who identify as LGBTQ. Additionally, over the years, we've seen an increase of access to college for a number of groups that may not have had that access before. That can include people with disabilities, includes people of color, students that are veterans, and other status that may not have had access to higher ed as they had before. This particular slide also shows that there are some populations that have experienced more incidents of discrimination, and those that have experienced discrimination have higher levels of mental health concerns. And so as groups that have historically been stigmatized attend college, we're seeing more folks that may have had some trauma or discrimination in their past that contributes to mental health as well. And then I know many of you have heard this national trend, and UAB we see this too, is that more students are experiencing food and housing insecurities. And we have developed services at UAB to help address these concerns, and we know that some of our students are experiencing these challenges as well, which contributes to their health and well-being and their ability to thrive in school. So what can we do about it? I realize I've presented a lot of information from a lot of different sources. And the reason I did that is because I think it's important that we recognize that the explanation for what's going on is not simple. It's very complex and multifaceted. There's a lot of things going on that's important for us to understand. So student counseling services, we are available to provide mental health to students for a range of presenting concerns. We offer individual, couples, and groups counseling. We also offer consultation to help a student, and that consultation is available to faculty and staff, other students, as well as parents and family if they're worried about a student and have a concern and need some consultation about how to best support that student. We also offer crisis and emergency support. So if there is a student who is experiencing suicidality or self-harm or is in high levels of distress, we can intervene and help ensure that they are safe and get connected to those resources that can help them. We do a number of prevention and education activities and workshops, and our main messages revolve around building resilience in our students, teaching them about self-care, and around suicide prevention. And I'll share a little bit more about those programs in a slide in just a moment. We've also grown our online support. There's some programs available where students can go through some self-screening and get some self-help information through our U-Lifeline and our eCheckUp2Go platforms. We additionally have what's called TAO, which is a platform where students can go and actually participate in some online counseling modules. This can be done through a self-help route, which all they have to do is go to our website and sign in with their UAB ID and password, and they can go ahead and start those platforms. Or they can meet with a counselor and have a coach help coach them through that online support. We have peer coaching. We have highly trained students that are available to offer peer-to-peer support for students as well, and that's available by appointment as well as walk-in. We do quite a bit to train faculty and staff because we know this is where students spend most of their time, in the classroom, in the labs, doing their academic pursuits. And faculty and staff are often the first folks that might notice if there's a concern or a change and are in a great position to reach out and offer support. And we do have social media, both on Facebook and on Instagram. Students can schedule an appointment by calling our office, coming by the office, or they can actually web book their first appointment online. Our services are confidential. Their information about counseling is not part of the student's academic record. It's kept completely separate and confidential, and that's very important for students. It's also free for enrolled students. We are able to offer support, and we also make sure that students are connected with other supports on campus that might be helpful to them. This is a little more about the education that we offer. Our Blazers Bounce Back program is about building resilience, and that we want to create a culture at UAB where mistakes might happen, failures might happen, but UAB students know how to bounce back and know how to get back on their path of success. SelfCare is a suicide prevention model that teaches students to question, persuade, and refer when they're concerned about someone that might be considering suicide. And then Control the Controllables is a program about managing your life, incorporating elements of self-care and balance so that you can change what you can and accept what you can't and have the kind of life that you want. Our peer coaching program is a program we've had for about 2 years, and here's a little more information about how to get students connected with this. We would love for you to share this information with your student. They can schedule their appointment online, or they can just come on by and meet with the student. The peer coaches are highly trained. They go through a semester-long course for credit. They are nationally certified peer educators, and they participate in weekly supervisions with licensed clinicians to ensure that the support that they're providing students is high quality and helpful and useful. So we're really proud of this program too. As I said, Blazers Bounce Back, this is what we do. Encouraging your student to tap into their own resilience is really important, and learning what resilience looks like. It doesn't mean that life is necessarily easier. What it means is that we embrace the difficulties and we know how to get back on our path. At our website, on the Counseling Services website, we have a section that is for parents and families, as well as faculty and staff, about how to help students. And so there's some information there, and I put a clip from our website and some additional tips about how to help when your college student is stressed. If this is something you'd like to learn more about. It's also important to take care of each other, and that is learning how to provide empathy to your student and understanding that sometimes it's just hard. It may be great sometimes, and then sometimes it's hard. This is a great video about how you can consider helping someone who might be going through a difficult time. It's a good way to wrap your brain around how sometimes the best way to help isn't always to cheer somebody up, but to provide empathy and let them know that you're with them through their difficulty. And take care of yourself as well. It's important as parents that you're able to model self-care and you're able to model positive mental health behaviors, naming that sometimes life is difficult. Our slogan, "You are not alone," has been developed this year as part of our suicide prevention efforts on campus to create a community where people know that they're not alone, that we take care of ourselves and each other, that we're checking in with each other, and that we're honest with how we're doing. Self-care is not selfish. You can't serve from an empty vessel. So giving folks permission to do the things that they need to do to be their best selves. So with that, I thank you so very much for this opportunity to share information. I hope I haven't overwhelmed you, but equipped you with some resources so that you can feel more confident about how to help your student. And now I'd love to take some time to answer any questions that you might have.
Again, if you want to utilize, if you do have any questions, please feel free to utilize that chat function. And then also, if you are joining us from the Facebook Live side of things, please feel free to just put something in as a comment over there. We are monitoring both areas because we want to make sure we answer any and all questions that you may have. giving everybody a moment to kind of process through that information. Thank you so much, Angela, for coming and sharing kind of the status of where our students are today and the services. I will say from personal experience and watching students utilize the different opportunities and programs that are out there, there's so many things that counseling services does for our students that is beyond just this idea. I think a lot of times families and students will think of counseling services as just a place to go specifically for that one-on-one individualized counseling, but there's a lot of times where they'll do one-off events and programs for students. I think about around exam times where they have a stress less week.
That's right.
Or other kind of key things that they're continuously doing to help your students be active and engaged in the process, but then finding the best ways, because can be such a stressful environment, of how to cope through that. So I'm really grateful for all of the work that you all do to help our students out.
Well, thanks, Meredith, and for this opportunity to speak with parents and family members. Parents and family members have a profound impact on our students, and when the parents and family members can support their students doing what they need to do to get mental health support, it goes such a long way. So we're always grateful when we can have that connection from our parents and family.
And then from the family side, if you have questions that do pop up beyond today, please feel free to know that you can reach out to the Office of Parent and Family Services. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. And then I know that there are individuals that are over in counseling services that are willing to talk. Again, as Angela said, everything is shared on it, that with students is confidential, but they can talk in general status things and provide information and help from time to time, but not be able to give you specifics about whether your student has ever actually been there, but to be able to be supportive and impactful for everybody. I'm not seeing any questions coming in at this point, but that doesn't mean that you won't think of one later. So if you do think of something, please feel free again to reach out to us, and we will ensure that we get that questions answered for you in a quick and timely manner. But I want to go ahead and respect everybody's time and say thank you so much for joining us, and that we will be holding another webinar here soon for you all. The next upcoming one will actually be about studying abroad, or our educational abroad system. So look out for that information to be forthcoming. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day and a great weekend ahead.
Thank you, Meredith.